Good day, Orange County.
Good day and welcome. We're so happy to be here.
We are still remote, and we are making the best of it, and we hope that you are enjoying your time as well. We hope that things are opening up for you and you're able to get out and visit with your family and friends, and we're looking forward to a great show.
We are. Amy, I have to say, I love the fact that I'm feeling at home watching your beachy scene in the background. It's helping me forget the rain that I see happening out my front window.
No, come back to the OC. We miss you.
I want to come back to the other side. I miss it too. But we have a great show ahead. Incredible guests. Just really an amazing theme, talking about how some amazing people have pivoted in this time of crisis, how they've actually taken their own businesses and made it so they can help others be better through this whole thing. I'm so excited for this show. I know everyone's just going to love it.
Well, with that, good day, Orange County.
See you in a bit. Our next guest makes me feel a little bit like David Letterman. I should be saying our next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. There have been so many blessings in this crisis, and one of them has been the opportunity for me to meet incredible, incredible people who have pivoted their businesses to virtual and online. And one of these people is the amazing Freddy Revell. If you don't know his name, you will never forget him after you've seen this.
Our next speaker, he's going to show us the process for tapping the power of music. The things he's going to tell you have helped Google, Apple, IBM, NASA, as well as his collaboration with Madonna, Prince, Earth, Wind and Fire, Carlos Santana. Ladies and gentlemen, as we put our eyes to the screen, get ready for Freddy Revell.
Freddie. Oh, if I could give you the biggest hug right now, I sure would.
Oh, let's do it. Come on.
Was amazing. Amazing. Welcome. Welcome to Good Day, Orange County. We are so happy to have you.
Well, it's an honor, and Orange County's kind of like a backyard for me, so good day to all my Orange County people.
And let me just give a little background here for our viewers in keeping with our theme of how people have really sought out music and magic and food and connectivity during this crisis. You have taken your talents, your skills, your gifts, and you've been able to open them up to even a more amazing audience, basically the whole world, without getting on an airplane.
It's really been wonderful. I mean, out of crisis comes all kinds of other opportunities. And, Lauren, for me, I've been trying to wonder how, after years and years of traveling and playing in about 82 countries so far, right?
So far.
And spending a lot of time on airplanes and at airports, what do you do when all of that shuts down? And what do you do when you can't go out to the world? So I've been working earnestly on bringing the world into here, into this space, so that in our studio we can access bits and pieces of the world and bring that to our viewers.
So what's most amazing to me is that even if I were in an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert or a Prince concert or Madonna or Carlos Santana, I wouldn't have a front row seat to see you. But now, every time I see you, I'm in the front row. And that's true for absolutely everyone now. It is remarkable. So please tell us a little bit about how you got started. All I know is that your first instrument was not a piano, but it was an accordion like my dad.
Yeah, truth be known, it was the accordion.
So take us on your musical journey.
Well, thank you, Lauren. It's been a really fascinating journey. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of different artists. I started off on the accordion. I went to the piano at about the age of 10 and 11, right in there. Mm. And once I landed on the piano, I just didn't want to go back. It was 88 keys, and to me, the whole orchestra was right there. From the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, it was the instrument that I felt I could really get my expression out of. I went to college in Southern California, Cal State University, Northridge. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in piano pedagogy and classical composition. And from there, the very next year after I got out of college, I was hired by Sergio Mendes to play Brazilian music and travel all around the world playing Brazilian.
I loved Sergio Mendes.
Yeah. You know, people might know that, you know, it was like that kind of thing. That kind of vibe.
How fun.
Samba, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ariayo.
Absolutely.
Oba, oba. We play that all over the world. And right after that, I ended up getting hired by one of my favorite bands. I got hired by Earth, Wind, and Fire. And in fact, I'm just trying to think, I actually have a few things I could share here with everybody real quick, because when I was working with these people, you know, we would be on the world stage in a situation like this and playing in front of 100,000 people. And shortly after that, I would have the opportunity to work with people like Earth, Wind, and Fire. One of the first people I started working with was Maurice White, who is the founder of the band. And he brought me on to play with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And after touring with them, I would later get hired by the great Carlos Santana. We would go around in buses and on planes and private planes and get in front of big stadiums and big festivals and perform all over. And then in the midst of all that, I got invited to work with the great Yolanda King. And this was a #1 song that we did on my solo records. And then Dr. Martin Luther King's eldest daughter, Yolanda King, invited me to participate in this book called Open My Eyes, Open My Soul. And at that point, I realized that I needed to merge my life of music with diversity, inclusion, and a message to bring humanity to a higher place. And I thought,
which is what music does.
Language? Why not use music to do it with? And then in the midst of all that, I became a dad. And this is a photo of my holding my son at 1 year old. And the purpose of this photo is to say that music is such a sacred, you know, art form that we need to pass it on to the next generation with a lot of love and a lot of care.
Oh, how beautiful.
In essence, you know, what we've been doing to lead us to what I'm doing now today, and that is talking about something that I believe is super important, and that is the idea that music is much more than entertainment, that music is really a multitasking power tool to help optimize the way we listen, the way we lead, the way we collaborate. And we built a whole operating system that I call Life in Tune.
So your first pivot out of music was really into bringing music to corporations or the corporate environment. How did you do that?
It wasn't my very first pivot, although that's what I've been doing now for the last 20 years.
Okay.
In the early 90s, I was working with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I started working with Deepak Chopra shortly thereafter. And with Deepak, we talked about that the space between the notes is as important as the notes themselves. It's a really interesting concept, but if you think about music, if you just play the notes, it's one thing. If I take the song Summertime, for example.
One of my favorites.
Now, if I don't think about space between the notes, it becomes... And it begins...
Exhausting.
It's exhausting because there's no space between the notes. Now, if you want to have space between the notes, all of a sudden you get something like this. It's just feeling the silence. And it's funny, Lauren, I've been in these Zoom calls, I was just thinking about all the viewers on this call. And I'm thinking about people with headphones in different parts of the world listening and just feeling what they're feeling, because if I can feel them breathe, it helps me play with a certain degree of space. And a lot of it has to do with how we honor silence. And by honoring silence, we actually can hear the subtleties of life. And that is what Life in Tune's about.
So tell us more. How did you get to Life in Tune?
I began to work on a system, Lauren. It took me a while to figure out the system, but it's a pretty simple system. It's based on this idea that if you take the three elements of music, melody, harmony, and rhythm, and you think about what they might look like, you realize that there's a melody and there's a harmony and there is rhythm. And if you think about melody, it always has to do with how we lead. The melody is the lead singer. The melody is the part of it that leads. And harmony is all about collaboration and bringing more than one note. Two or more notes is what you need for harmony. And of course, Lauren, rhythm is always about timing and synchronization. So all music has this leadership piece, a collaboration piece, and a synchronicity to it. And when melody, harmony, and rhythm all come together, something magical happens. And you lead to a new level of being in tune. And this is what I call life in tune.
So you've got this system, and now you are taking it completely virtual to extend to the world. You've invited us into your home studio, for which I'm also eternally grateful. Loving watching the action of you pulling the keyboard out, pushing the keyboard in. Yeah. You've really got the setup down. How is this working for you? How are you actually creating? Because as we've talked before, as a performer, you need the audience and they need you to get that energy, to get that feeling, to really get into your heart. Part of it is sitting in the audience and feeling the vibration, feeling the percussion. How are you doing that? Because I know you have figured it out like magic.
Well, I've worked really hard on it. And in fact, one of the guests that spoke earlier, Ken Skye, really helped me put some of this together, which I'm very grateful to. But we all need people in our lives. I have a team of great people. Ken's part of that team. And it's working with these different people that I'm actually I care a great deal about synchronicity. I do live melody, harmony, and rhythm very literally in my life. So one of the biggest things to figure out was, if I play a key and I touch it, will somebody on the other side of the world hear it within a nanosecond of the time that I play it? In Los Angeles, will they hear it in South Africa? So that if I do this, if I play something like this, and my hand goes up and I finish it, does the person in South Africa on the other side of the world hear it and see it? And what's amazing is we've got it to the point where it's working.
Really?
It's an incredible technology. We've already done this for audiences in about 25 different countries on a Zoom call in different time zones. And they're all reacting to it in the same moment, because we can see the chat room light up and we see people respond immediately, which is incredible. And what we're doing is we're delivering the idea that music is much more than entertainment, that it's a tool that we can use to optimize the way we think and the way we show up. And I feel, Lauren, in this pandemic, there's a lot of ways you could look at it. There's a horrifying, tragic aspect to it. But the other side of the coin is there's a tremendous gift of hitting the pause button. I don't think there's ever been a time, I call it E3. E to the power of 3. We have everybody, everywhere experience. Everybody, everywhere experience. That's never happened before, I was in the earthquake in Los Angeles in 1994. My house was red tagged. I thought I was going to die. It was a terrible thing. But not everybody everywhere experienced that. Only people in Los Angeles experienced that. The pandemic, wearing a mask, social distancing, everyone on the planet is dealing with this.
It's true.
So how do we take this moment of human synchronicity, where we're all feeling this sense of, I got a distance, I have to be careful. And now, to make matters worse, my face is covered, right? And you can't see my smile. You have to feel my smile through my eyes, right? Well, I view music as the invisible hero. You see, a lot of people call COVID-19 the invisible enemy, right?
Right.
The invisible virus, right? You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it, right? You can't taste it, right? Well, music, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it, you can't see it, but it moves and inspires you. So I like to call music the invisible hero to combat the invisible virus.
I love that. So, Freddie, how can we possibly get the word out about the magic that you're doing with your music and really expand that E3, which I love, because, I'm all about the blessing in the crisis. And I think that really, you've nailed it, is we are all going through it together. So we might as well find what lifts us and let it be music.
Yeah, well, music is that undisputed language that we all know, I mean, every viewer right now, all of you have a heartbeat, right? Human heartbeat's about 76 beats per minute, average, right? And so we're all feeling a drummer inside of us. The rhythm is there, constantly reminding us of that. So how do we harness that? I want to just, Lauren, thank you for this, because I just want to invite people to visit lifeintune.com. We're going to lifeintune.com, just like it sounds.
We'll put it on the screen.
There's going to be a lot that we're going to do with that. There's a book, and there will be a course, and there are people talking about a TV show. There's a lot of things going on right now around Life in Tune. And I welcome everyone to just stay in touch through that, because that way you'll know where we're going. And pretty soon we're going to need, we want to bring Life in Tune to every country on the planet.
And if you're doing it virtually, there's no reason you can't.
That's our
So
dream.
you're already there. Well, I know our viewers are going to check it out and keep in touch. And who doesn't want their life to be in tune? I don't think there's anyone who would say no to such a generous offer. So, Freddy, thank you so much for joining us. Can I ask you one more favor?
Sure.
Will you play us out?
Okay, I'll be happy to. Sure.
That'd be great.
Should we do it with a solo, or do you want us to just use a full-blown orchestra?
Oh my gosh. If it's you and an orchestra, I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's do it then. And we can't get the orchestra to fit here, but we're going to go ahead and put them on the screen for you.
Okay. I'm in.
And this is what I'm going to say is you're going to hear a melody from Mozart. You'll hear this melody, and you're going to see a full-blown orchestra, and you will see me on the screen in a white coat playing the piano. But the piano part is muted, and I'm going to be playing the live piano right here, which you'll see as you see this.
You're such a gift, Freddy Revell. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed. Here it is.
And we'll be back. It is just an absolute honor to be able to introduce to you people whom I know and truly love, and know that now that Amy knows them, she's going to truly love them as well. And our next guest is one of those people who you've seen his work, you just never knew it was him, because he is the behind the scenes guy to Bradley Cooper's amazing singing in A Star is Born, and Reese Witherspoon, and Joaquin Phoenix in Walk the Line. And he is a talent in his own right. He has helped hundreds, thousands of people sing. But in keeping with the theme of our show, we're talking about pivots in the time of challenge and crisis. And Roger Love is one of the greatest pivoters I've ever known. Roger, welcome to the show. I'm not going to talk about you anymore. It's going to be your turn to share your journey with our viewers. So thank you so much for being with us.
It's my honor to be here.
And we would love to hear some of that journey. How did you go from a child to training the most well-known actors and singers in Hollywood? And then your next pivot is to speakers. So I think maybe if you could take us along our journey and tell us some of your favorite stories.
Sure. I was always interested in singing. I believe that I sang before I spoke. I realized early on that singing was the one quickest way to be happy. So if I was ever depressed, I would just bust out a tune and I just felt better. It was impossible not to be happy when you're singing. So I only ever wanted to sing. And by the time I was 13 years old, I had begged my parents enough daily to go and get me voice lessons, because I not only just wanted to be a singer, I wanted to be the best singer I could be. And they ended up bringing me to the #1 voice coach in the world at that time, because he had all of the biggest singers, from Streisand to Sinatra to Stevie Wonder. All the biggest stars already studied with him. And so I went and auditioned for him to see if he would even take me as a student. And he did. And that's where the journey started. I started studying with an amazing teacher. Then when I was 16, he went out of town. He wanted to teach a master class in Banff on voice. And he didn't have anyone to take over his studio. because there were no associates. There were no vice presidents of the studio. It was him and all of his famous students. So he said to me, Roger, do you want to come over after school and teach a few lessons? Because I'm leaving the country. And I said, that sounds amazing. Only one problem I could just see, just a little problem. I have no idea how to be a teacher. I'm just trying to be a good student. He said, oh, don't let that stop you, because I'm going to pay you $100 an hour. And that's the last thing I remember hearing. And then I blinked my eyes a couple of times, and I was at the studio Monday after school. And my first lesson teaching was Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Oh
and then,
my gosh.
And then every singer that you could possibly imagine who was on the top of the charts. Groups like Chicago and Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire and the Jacksons. And one by one, this is my first day. And as you could imagine, I was outside of any comfort zone anyone could ever draw. If there were lines to comfort zone, I couldn't even see the lines. I was so far away from any comfort zone. But I really did my best. And 6 months later, every single one of his stars decided they wanted to stay with me instead of going back to him, because we all found that I had an ability to listen to the way people sounded, at that time only singers, and then make it better.
So
and
you
so
had to work with, and you just brought it to 2.0.
Yes, and my teacher had taught me a good technique, so I had a good foundation to start with, but I just had some innate ability that I was able to hear the way they sounded and come up with ways that they could sound better, and they liked that. So he brought me in as a junior partner. So at 16 and a half, I was already the number 2 man in the voice world at the number 1 studio in the world. And I stayed with him for 17 years as a junior partner.
Wow.
And we shared all of the students that came in over the next 17 years. I continued to go to finish school, went to college, did everything I was doing anyways with singing, but I also taught in every other free waking moment. And that's how the singing career started. How I pivoted, because that's a key word today, how I pivoted, and I may say that word again today, toward speakers was 17 years later, speakers like Anthony Robbins and John Gray and Reese Witherspoon and Susie Orman and all of these really famous people started coming to me, and they said, hey, we've heard that you're a terrific singing coach, and we want you to work on our speaking voice. And so what did I do? What did I say? I said, no, thank you. You're very nice. I like your movies. I love your TV shows. No, thank you. I'm a singing coach. But here's some people you could go to. Here's some speech pathologists if you're having problems. Here's some other voice coaches who specialize in speaking. Try them. Reach back out to me after a month or so and just let me know how it's going. But I don't want to take your money because I'm a singing coach. So then they would go. And a month or so later, they would all call me one by one. And they would say, Roger, that other person you sent me to, very nice, but they didn't solve the problems. So can you work with me? And I would say, okay, I'll try it. In the beginning, I didn't charge them. I said, I'm not so sure I could fix your speaking voice. Why don't you come in? We'll do a lesson or two. I won't charge you. If I think I can do it, then we'll make something happen. So then I started accepting speakers. And then I started from scratch again, thinking that I would have to do what I did with singing, create a technique that really was better than anything else out there. So I studied everything about the speaking voice and read every book and talked to every expert and laryngologist and throat doctor and ENT, and I started creating ideas. And let me just say that I came full circle to realize soon that there's hardly any difference between singing and speaking, that it's all based on pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volumes. And then I was so running on the ground and already winning the race because I had spent 17 years teaching singers how to open up their mouths and create sounds that would influence people, move them emotionally. So I realized I could do the same thing with speakers. And that's why I am a multi-level person. That's why I'm here today, because I spend 50% of my time working with singers and 50% of my time working with speakers and love it.
And I have to say, one of my favorite videos ever is of Tony Robbins doing his in-home workout while he's doing your vocal exercises all around the house. That is one of the funniest moments I've ever seen on video.
That's in his Netflix special, I Am Not Your Guru. He's warming up to my vocal exercises, so you hear me right before he does the dip into the ice bath and all the other morning tortures that he schedules for himself to survive. So yeah, that was a cute bit.
So now we're in a whole different place where we've got this great opportunity to connect, for instance, with people we couldn't normally connect with. I've been trying to get you on the show for however long, but driving the 405 was just never going to happen.
That's because the 405 is not really the 405. It's the 666. It just has a nickname.
I agree with you more, Roger. That is absolutely right. So I have so many questions. So on your website, first of all, I want to know, have you ever taught Donnie and Marie?
Over the years, I have gotten calls from their people saying, oh, they want to work with you, but it never actually materialized.
The reason I wondered was because all of a sudden she came out with this amazing ability to sing opera. And I had no idea where it came from, and is totally brand new. So I just wondered if you had something to do with that. But It's really incredible to me to see how you have been able to take the kind of the lump, and I think this is where it's applicable in business, which is my field, where you can take potential, right? And you can see the potential and you can chisel the David statue out of it and make it something really beautiful and be able to see that's like a true artist expert ability to do that, So one of the questions that I have for you is, as you were learning how to pivot, one of the things I noticed that you mentioned was this comparing similarities from one aspect into another, right? And being able to pivot based on similarity. Is there anything else that you've done that if one of us is trying to make a career change, or if another person's trying to make a lifestyle change? A lot of our audience is in a transition right now, as many of them are moving to an active adult community. When you make those transitions and those pivots, besides comparing similarities, what are some other things that you think people can do to make it successful for them?
At any age, we basically think that's the voice we were born with. Mm-hmm. And during our lives, there are times when if we made other sounds, if we actually created some changes to our voices, we could change our life. Mm-hmm. So people are thinking they were born with the voice they have, but they weren't. They were born with an instrument. So here's how it works. We imitated the sounds of the people that were in our sphere. So if my mother spoke really airy and I really, really wanted to be fed all the time, as soon as I could make sounds, I tried to sound like my mother. So if she sounded really airy, Roger, you're such a nice little boy. You're always hungry, but you're so nice. Then as soon as I could speak, because I wanted to be fed and I wanted to connect, and sound connects people, I would say, hungry, mommy, hungry. I would speak airy. If my father spoke really nasal and talked like this, I'm going to go fishing. And if I wanted to go fishing with my dad, then I wanted to connect with him. So I'd say, fishing, daddy, I want to go fishing, thinking it connected. So then, boom, all of a sudden we're 20 or 30 or 50 or heading into an adult living place. And we think that's our voice, but we're nasal or we're airy, and it's just the voice that we imitated. And so I help people at any age say, these are the sounds that are working for me. These are the sounds that are connecting me to the relationships I want to have. And these are the sounds that may not be working for me. Maybe I want to get a new job, but I don't sound hireable. Maybe I want to have a new relationship, but I don't even sound attractive. Maybe I want to do this, but I don't even sound intelligent. Maybe I want to do this, but the sounds I'm making aren't showcasing the very best of who I am. So to those people of every age, especially the people that are following you and fans of you two and your show, I say it's time to listen to the way you sound and decide that maybe a vocal makeover is the absolute thing that you need that will lead you into the next part of your life and have that be more successful than it would have been otherwise.
Oh my gosh, that is so brilliant. And I love the fact that you connected it to relationships and that the sounds making that emotional connection to the relationships in order to achieve your objectives. Brilliant. That's amazing. So pivoting, focus on similarities, use your voice, be authentic with your voice, connect it to relationships. What else?
Well, I'd say my question would be for now in the world that we're living in, right? Where we have to make those same connections in many cases through a mask. I mean, I don't want to ignore the fact that we're living in a very, very surreal time where those connections and those relationships still need to get made. And this to me has been your most recent pivot, is how to help people still connect vocally through a mask, even through a wall, right? How do we do that?
Great, that's a great question. Okay, so some practical things that we can do right now to communicate better through a mask. The mask, by virtue of the fact that it blocks air leaving the mouth, cuts out a lot of volume. So what you have to do is you have to speak louder when you're wearing a mask. Now, most people are afraid to speak louder because they've equated volume with angry. And if I spoke louder, give me the dry cleaning. That the person behind the counter would be like, back up another 6 feet, buddy, because they equate volume with anger. But the truth is that volume is only one sound of anger. And to actually sound angry, you have to be louder. You have to speak faster, because when you're angry, your blood pressure is risen and your pulse is racing, and you speak faster, and you have to take all the melody out of it. So it's all one note. So if I do monotone and I get louder and I get faster, I sound angry. But if I have melody, which means I go up and down like a good song, I can have all the volume in the world. So when you're wearing a mask, you have to, number one, be louder to compensate for the air being blocked by the mask. And you have to add more melody so that they know you're not angry. I love my wife. She's amazing. I love my mask. It's my best friend. Volume and melody. Also, here's another tip. When you wear a mask, people are not dropping their jaw that much, because when you drop your jaw with a mask, it pulls it off of your nose.
Yeah.
So people sound like they're mumbling because they're trying to keep the upper lip and the lower lip closer together so that the mask doesn't come off their nose. So then they end up mumbling and all the words kind of come together like this because they're not opening their mouth very much. So what you have to do is you have to over-enunciate the consonants. When you speak, you still have to make consonants bigger. This and that and Roger and Lauren and Amy and Dave. This is how I'm going to talk more. I'm not just going to blur through the consonants. Cat, computer, that's okay.
Almost like you're on stage, right?
Pardon me?
Almost like you're on stage. Louder, lower.
Louder for sure, more melody for sure, and accentuate the consonants so that people can tell when one word stops and one word ends. Use the consonants and record yourself speaking with a mask, and you'll realize you're doing it.
But how can people find you, and where can they connect with you? Because we want them to.
Wonderful. I never come empty-handed to any of these things. So the gift that I've brought all of your people is $50 off of my Perfect Voice collection. So if you go to theperfectvoice.com, you'll see, and by the way, it's incredibly affordable. $50 off is me almost giving you the whole thing. So you go there and you type in the promo code, which is GOOD, GOOD, in honor of your show. So type in GOOD and it'll take $50 off what already was the bargain of the century. And this is the perfect place to start, to think about, how do I sound? What should I sound like? How could changing just little tweaks in my voice change the way other people communicate with me and feel about me, and how I showcase the best of myself through the new voice?
Roger, God knew what he was doing when he called you love, because that it's impossible not to love you. And we're so, so grateful for you joining us and sharing with us. I know our viewers are going to look for you, and I am living proof that you can get better at any age, and Roger's the one to help you do it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll see you again.
Bye.
Bye. And we'll be right back. I am so excited to introduce you to our next guest. From the jungles of Paraguay to the corporate stages around the world, this man will make the impossible possible. He makes things disappear and reappear. And if we get this right, we will all still be here by the end of this segment. I'd like to introduce you to Ken Skye. Welcome, Ken. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And it's my pleasure to be on. And it's nice to meet you as well, Amy. And
it's wonderful to meet you. And I'm so excited to learn about your story. First, where were you born in the jungles of Paraguay?
Well, I can show you. I was actually born right there in the middle. It's the heart of South America, basically. So if you went right to the center, there's a tiny little country called Paraguay. And you might imagine or picture Mowgli jumping through the tall trees. It wasn't like that at all. It's much more like a smaller bush type land. But I do have a photo that I can show you, and it's right here. That's actually a picture of my uncle teaching me how to walk. And you will notice, if you can watch closely, I was barefoot. And this is from a time in my life when I grew up very humbly. We actually lived in a barn of somebody else's house for a while. And that's how I grew up. That's where I came from.
Did you enjoy living in Paraguay? Did you enjoy the bush and the remote area?
I did. And I think if you don't know what you're missing or not missing, then you're not missing it. So I grew up very happy, and I never had Legos. I would use corn cob, like after you take the corn off, I would use those to make people from, or berries from the bush, and take the thorns from cactuses to poke in as legs. And that's how I would make my own animals. And we would just, on the ground and the dirt, we would push the dirt together to shape houses where all the people could live in that we made. And it's one of the happiest memories of my life.
Oh, that's amazing. So what brought you here to the United States?
I'm actually based in Winnipeg, Canada right now.
Canada.
And I came here in 2003. And the reason I came here is because, well, first of all, ever since I was a child, I always dreamt of seeing the world. I thought there's got to be more out there. And I can actually show you a little story on how I got to this point here. So it starts off with me crawling in the dirt.
You didn't crawl from Paraguay to Canada.
No, I didn't. But this is kind of like...
I am loving all of these pictures. This is so great.
This is what led up to it. So one night, I'm about 5 years old, and we're sitting around a bonfire. We'll just light that here. And I was talking to my mom, and I asked her, how do I write letter in the sand or in the dirt? And she'd teach me. She'd show me, this is how you write a letter, and then another one, and then this is how you write a word. And when that happened, I had looked up at her and said, Mom, sorry about that. Let's just get there. Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher. And so that's where the journey started. But before we get to that point, we would many times sit around the bonfires, and we would many times look up at the sky. And my dad would say, see that? That's a satellite. And that's an airplane. And he would teach me the differences. And he would said, one day, we're going to be on an airplane flying all the way to Canada. And that was our dream. And then before we knew it, the Canadian government said, because you have ancestors from Canada who moved to Paraguay, you can become a Canadian citizen. And how exciting was that?
Oh,
So
wow.
we
That's
became
amazing.
Canadian citizens.
Wow.
But there was a condition to it. You have to live in Canada for an entire year before you turn 28. Otherwise, you'll lose it. Well, I didn't want to let that opportunity miss. So in 2003, I moved to Canada with my wife, 2 suitcases, and $100.
Wow.
Wow.
And now let's just go back to our pivot stories, because listening to all of your pivots, you went from dreaming of being a teacher to acting and onto magic and comedy and mind reading. I mean, you have pivoted your whole life pretty much halfway around the globe. So now you're showing us, and Amy commented on all these great pictures and visuals that are popping up on the screens that we're loving so much to tell your story. Jump us forward now to where you are and what you're doing.
So, yeah, I do have to just jump back one more time because it is important for the pivot. My dad broke the news to me when I was in high school, about grade 9. He said, you know what, we're going to have to get you out of school and help out on the farm because we simply can't afford to send you to school. But I didn't want to miss out on the chance to becoming a teacher. So I said, I'll do whatever it takes. So I did jobs. I was a shoemaker. I was a mesh wire maker. I was a charcoal maker. I drove a tractor delivering potable water to people during school time. And I would take my books with me and study for exams as the tank was filled up. And so I worked all through high school and college so I could pursue my dream. But my favorite job of all of those was when I worked as a radio sound engineer. Late nights and doing all the technical things. And back when I did this, I still had to wind the cassette tapes to the right spot in a song, hit play, and it would start playing just a few seconds before the song started, and then fade in and out the different tracks. So all of those things kind of taught me a bunch of different skills. And for me, it was just always, I'm doing what I need to do to where I want to get. So when I came to Canada, I didn't speak English in 2003, and there was no place for me to get a job. But I got a job because I had learned computer skills. So technology helped me with that big pivot into this new country. And because I spoke Spanish, I was able to figure out the meanings of the menus on a computer when they gave me this test. So I passed with flying colors, and I got a job because of my tech skills. So that was a major element that helped me pivot into this new world. And since I was a child, there was always, I do have a little something here that I could show you, kind of to talk about the dreams, where that whole journey goes on to where I'm here now. If you would like to see it, I'll be happy to
Show
show
us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what an amazing young boy you were to be able to see the vision beyond what you knew and know what you wanted and go get it and do whatever it took to get there. I'm just absolutely amazed. Your parents must be so proud.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So let's bring out some bubbles, because bubbles to me are like dreams. Not just because they burst so many times. So let's make some bubbles. Aren't they amazing?
I always love bubbles. I don't know anybody who doesn't love bubbles.
No, to me, a bubble is a dream. And I've been wanting to be many things. One of my first dreams, like I said, was to be a teacher. And I did. I became a teacher. And ever since I went to school, I loved the stage. We'd have school plays, and there was a new dream born that I tried to catch. And that was to be a rock star. I wanted to be a rock star, and I wanted to be an actor, because I saw these movies and I thought, how cool would it be to tell your story in the most amazing way? So I kept pursuing all these dreams, and I never had enough time in a day. And many times, a dream would burst just like that. But if there's one thing that I learned as a young child, is to never give up, because that's when you lose. You can only win if you get up again. Until you catch that dream. So when I came to Canada, I had a chance to first start off as a background actor. So I was on set, and that was one of the small little victories for me. I caught one of those dreams. And then I got a role as a magician in a movie. What I learned is, over all these times, is because I never gave up on any of those dreams, some of them came true, but I didn't always even realize that they had come true. Because before I knew it, I was performing on a stage, I was playing the guitar, I was singing, I was doing a concert, and I was thinking, wait a minute, I might not be a rock star, but look at this crowd of people having a great time because of what we're experiencing together, and I'm part of this. And when my son was born in 2005, and we spent a lot of time at the hospital, a magician came by and he did some magic up close and personal for me. Well, for him. But it spoke to me much stronger than I ever imagined. And that's how the journey for me into magic was born. Does that kind of answer your question?
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Oh, it is.
Thank you.
So fun. It's so fun to be able to really visualize what you were experiencing and understand that. And I agree with you so much. I remember, who was it that said success is moving from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm? And I loved what you said about sometimes our dreams are going to burst and sometimes they're not. But what you can't ever do is give up. And what an amazing story.
Thank
so
you.
Can I ask you more then about the pivots that you've made recently, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I'm a speaker and magician. So what I do is I travel and I perform at corporate events, at trade shows. And so one of my recent highlights was I was in Las Vegas in February performing on a big trade show floor. And so I use magic as a tool to present a company and their products, and so in a way where people can remember the benefits of the product. And so what I've been doing ever since we weren't able to travel anymore, when we put all of those activities on pause, is I looked at, so the first thing was, okay, I can't do what I'm doing now. So what am I going to do next? So like instantly my instinct went to what can I do, not what can't I do. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I've done computer stuff for a while. I even used to own a software company some years ago. So I thought, how can I take what I do on stage and bring it to the virtual stage? Mm. And so I saw a lot of people that jumped on it. There was magicians who jumped on and they did magic shows over Zoom. And I looked at it and I didn't like it because it was this yellow-faced, unengaging experience that I thought, if I'm doing this, I'm going to make this more engaging. So I started digging in hours and hours and hours. The first video I made was just a 1.5-minute video. I spent 50 hours on it just to make it stand out from other people's videos. And it got me attention. So people, when they saw what I did, they also saw, okay, so he's not doing the standard thing. He's going, like he's taking things to a new level. And for me, it was kind of like, that's what I do. Mm-hmm. But then I noticed that I was getting more and more attention of people who were looking, okay, I'm going to pay attention to what Ken is doing. So when I finally came out with performing on a virtual stage, I had elements in it that just I think, make things more engaging. I mean, you've seen it in the beginning of the presentation. So when you pull things up into the screen and the way things look, I mean, there's so many things that are important to pivot to the stage. And I call this process virtualizing. So I virtualized my show. And because I can't just take what I do on stage, stand in front of the camera and do the same thing. It just does not work.
Right.
So I had to take little elements. I had to scale my illusions down. And I could bring in some effects as well. So they're not camera effects that are used to perform the magic, but they're elements that enhance the stories, hopefully.
So the whole purpose here is to make everyone feel like they're in the front row of your show, even though you're not physically there, but to get that same level of engagement. And I know that as you've gone through the story and shown us the visuals, our reaction is just the same, like, wow, this is kind of like being there.
Yeah.
So are you doing this on the regular, or have you pivoted yet again? Because I know you've gotten a lot of interest from people who want to know how to do what you're doing.
Yeah, so I do both. I do perform virtual shows, and I've been doing some consulting for companies that are looking into doing a virtual gala. And how can you make a virtual gala an experience? And you mentioned that everybody has a front row seat from the comforts of their own home. So people that might not be able to travel because whatever the reason is, but I just picture a grandmother sitting on a couch next to her grandchild with the iPad. And together, these two people now have an experience, and they're connected closer to the artist than they ever might have been able to if they went to a live event. So if we pivot this way, if we focus on the things we can do and forget, then the things we can't do kind of become, they fade away.
I think if there's one theme that I keep hearing over and over again for what makes the difference between someone who is successful and someone who is not during this time in reinventing themselves, it's exactly what you said. It's taking what you can do and looking at all the opportunities from within it. And I don't know I've never heard of anyone be able to do what you've done so many times and be so successful at so many things. It's incredible.
Well, thank you.
It's an amazing story. And I just have to ask, because I know Amy's thinking it, so I'm going to say it. Can you do some magic for us?
I can. Of course I can. So the question that we just talked about is, what can we do, and forget about what we can't do? So, because I could be stuck on, I want to travel and see the world. Oh, look, there's South America. Maybe I'm focused on all the distances between us. Maybe I'm really just kind of feeling that I'm missing out on life. But if we focus on what can we do, and to be honest, Lauren, if it wasn't for our current situation, we probably wouldn't have met. And I met many amazing people all over the world. And it's because in many ways, I'm now more connected than I ever was. Because through the internet, we're all connected.
What? Oh my gosh.
I hope that kind of visualizes what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So how can our viewers find you, and how can they connect with you now, since we're all about connecting?
So the best way to connect with me is through my website, which should be showing up right there, kenskye.com. And from there, you can get in touch via email, or you can find my LinkedIn profile. And I coach people, executives, and artists to show themselves in the best light and to be engaging on screen. And so you've already seen, or you may be seeing, I'm not sure if he's on yet, Freddy. So I was working with him, and so together we were able to create just amazing, engaging experiences. And that's what my final pivot has been to this point.
Thank you so much for what you're doing for everyone. And I hope that you'll have the opportunity to do it for a whole lot more people as time goes on, because it does make magic for the rest of us to be able to show up more fully as who we are, and you seem to have nailed it. It's the marriage between the magic and the reality that allows us to connect through the screen. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Hey, Lauren, it's my pleasure to be on here, and it's a never-ending journey. Every day I'm learning new things, and I'm happy to share and help other people connect with their audiences. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for joining us.